Tonight, CBSN will premiere its first feature documentary, Welcome to Pine Lake. The film set out to tell the triumphant story of a progressive, women-run community in Georgia, but it ended up unearthing the institutional racism at the city's core.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
The mayor, the city council, everything's run by a woman. That's impressive. I love that.
Pine Lake is predominantly white, but the surrounding area is 90% black.
It started to dawn on me that the makeup of the defendants seemed to reflect quite differently from residents.
They're just living a life that's calm, and you don't mess with them.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under the penalties of perjury?
Elisa Gambino is the director of Welcome to Pine Lake, and she joins me now from Atlanta. Welcome so much, Elisa. Why did you set out to make this film?
Thanks so much for having me. In 2018, I was excited about so many women running for public office. And so I set out, I say this a lot, but I think a lot of women wonder what would a world look like run by women. And so I set out to try to find what that might look like, even in a microcosm. And so I did some research, and I found that the city of Pine Lake, Georgia, which happens to be fairly close to my house, is run entirely by women. And so we wanted to make a film about what a community and a city run by women would look like. And so that's what we did. So we started filming in July of 2018.
So it's interesting because it sounds like you had an expectation going into this project. When did you start to see that there was another story?
I think the first day that we filmed in the courtroom. So the city is run by an entire female city council, a female mayor, a female and then within the judicial system in this tiny city is also run by women. And so the first time that we went into the courtroom was when we first realized that it didn't seem right that this predominantly white city had a courtroom that had predominantly African-American defendants. And so something seemed odd or not in keeping with what I had seen in the city, which is a very inclusive city and forward-thinking city when it comes to the environment and how they actually care for each other in the city. So that was the story that then, an additional part of the story that we wanted to look at.
So what's been the reaction from the community?
I think I'm very grateful to the community for welcoming us into film. That's not an easy thing to do. And I think it's difficult when you realize that your city in many ways is a microcosm for the rest of the country, and that the challenges they're facing there are challenges that exist in communities across the country. But nonetheless, Pine Lake, there is a moral failing there. And that failing is that funding comes, partial funding for the city, and almost 100% of the funding for the police force comes from African-American drivers that drive down a 1/3 of a mile of road that's on the edge of the city. And so their comfort comes at a cost. And I'm not even sure that the people in the city necessarily knew, because in the 18 months that we were filming there, this was never discussed by the city council as an issue or a problem or something that they were hoping to resolve or do away with at some point. So there's a pipeline, and it begins with the city council and the city government, and how does the city get funded? And then in that pipeline, and more towards the end of it, you find a compassionate police chief that is issuing tickets, and then a compassionate judge who is having to deal with the results of that pipeline. But we have to remember that it starts with our local governments and our local elected officials. So, so the reaction in the community has been wide-ranging, and that's completely understandable to me.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about sort of the particulars of this town. What is it that you would like people overall who watch this, who are not anywhere near Pine Lake, to actually take away from this documentary?
I think Pine Lake is a very, there's a lot of things about Pine Lake that are to be commended. But there are a lot of things about a lot of our communities that are really wonderful, and that are things that we should celebrate. But I think that that systemic racism is hard to see, and that some people, we've been programmed not to see it. And that even in places that look like they're working hard, there's always more work to be done. And our first African-American mayor here in Atlanta, he said something, and I might get it a little bit wrong, but he said that, you know, the problem isn't always the bad guys. Sometimes it's the problem is when the good guys go to sleep. And I think it's a call for us all to examine our communities.
All right, well, it looks fascinating. I can't wait to watch it. Elisa Gambino, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having the film. Thank you.